Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. It's a pleasure to see you, folks. My name is Dustin Cormier, and you're watching How to Rock Astrology. It's been a little while since I've come on live with you guys and decided to hang out. I'm just getting my live chat prepared, so if anybody wants to join in on the live chat, please feel free. This is my first of this series of coming live and hanging out with you guys. So I'd just like to say thanks for coming. I'm planning on doing this more. I'm going to try to do it once a week. I like the idea of being live. Now that I have lots of subscribers, I can hang out with you guys. You can ask questions. We can really finally get to know each other. Now today, for everybody watching, this is going to be our first episode, and we're going to be talking about Libra, Sun, Man. The character, as our book Sextrology defines them. It's an interesting way of calling Libra, man. This is coming from Sextrology, the astrology of sex and the sexes, by Starsky and Cox. Now, this book is written by some very suave, savvy New York characters. You can look them up. They've done talks on this Sextrology book. They're very intelligent people, and they're very interesting. And they have decided to write this Sextrology book to talk about the astrology of sex and the sexes. So this involves the eroticism of masculinity and femininity in it. Now, for everybody watching, I'm somebody who is certainly sympathetic to the LGBTQ plus community and to people who consider themselves to be non-binary. Whatever you identify as, we are exploring the nature of an astral archetype coming through the method of masculine or feminine gender behavior and personality. And this is how I'm kind of approaching this, as gender as being something that as the social construct that people consider it as. We don't have to go into what biology means in this regard. I'm just, open to all things. That's kind of why I'm talking about it in this way. I'm going to put on my fancy necklace. So, it's a real pleasure to be hanging out with you guys live. As I said, if anybody feels like talking with me on my little on the chat, you can feel free, and I'm going to do my best to answer questions as we go along. Now, today is all about Libra, Sun, Man. The writers of this book really did intend to talk strictly about the sun in the sign of Libra. Now, there's a few things to say about this consciousness. Libra, man, is an interesting place for a man's sun, because the male consciousness typically has the sun as an important arbiter of their soul consciousness. Everybody has this, but men in particular abide by the sun's nature for expressing their gender and their soul consciousness. They say that women abide by the moon and Venus for expressing the heart of their character, and men depend on the sun and Mars for expressing the heart of their character. Both genders need all of these planets to express the fullness of themselves, but men lean on the sun and Mars. Now, the sun is debilitated in Libra, and the first thing I'd like to say about that is that if you're a Libra man, or you love somebody who is a Libra man, we have to always understand that just because somebody has a debilitation placement of a planet doesn't mean that planet is completely flat busted. I myself have Venus in Virgo, and Venus is it's my Atmakarka. It's a ruling planet for me. And I still kick ass. So the thing is that there's so much that goes into each planet, aside from just the planet and its sign. There is aspects to the planet. There is Shadbala, which is a Vedic idea of several quantifications of a planet. You could be born at a time of day that suits Libra, or that suits the sun. And you could have the sun at the top of the chart in the 10th house. That's a good place for the sun to be, by Digbala. The sun could be aspected by Mars or Jupiter or the moon, its friends. All of these things add up to giving the sun a possible boost outside of just its sign. As well, there could be Rashi aspects. There's many things in Vedic astrology that are considered to be good for a planet. So just because you have a Libra sun doesn't mean that your sun is going to be flat busted. Another one is the Navamsha chart. Where the sun is in the Navamsha chart helps us to define whether the sun has strength or not. And even if all of these things are in difficult placements, as I always like to say, astrology just describes the astral sphere of karma. We are the eternal pure consciousness bearing witness to the Plato mold that our soul is going through. And if we can accept the Plato mold that is there, if we can accept our reality, we can abide in the heart and not blame ourselves, not feel victimized, and deal with it the best that we can, so that we can ultimately take the object of our lives and give ourselves the most subjective fulfillment that we can by accepting what we have been given through our karma. Because whatever we've been given is there for a reason, and it's only for one life, only for one incarnation. So do the best you can with it. Accept the gifts that you do have. Because Libra man is actually full of many gifts. We're going to talk about them as we go along. They're diplomatic, they are artistic, they are lovable, they are charming, and we're going to go through them all. Now, before we do, the first thing I'd like to do before we get into this is talk a little bit about Libra Sun through a cool book by Pratyush Bhattacharya. Now, everybody knows that I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer. I consider that Libra Sun occurs when a person is born between about September 23rd and October 23rd. I don't take the signs back 23 degrees like other sidereal Vedic astrologers. I'm the tropical Vedic astrologer. I use Western measurements, but I apply Vedic interpretation to those measures. Now, the gentleman who wrote this is also a tropical Vedic astrologer. He is a student of Ernst Wilhelm, and Ernst Wilhelm has gone on and talked about his book. And I've read through a lot of it, and it's actually pretty awesome. He has sign placements for each of the planets. And it's a good little short description of what it means that the sun is debilitated in Libra. So that's why I've decided to share it with you all today. So we're going to get into Pratyush Bhattacharya's vision of the Libra sun. And after this, we're going to start getting into Sextrology by Starsky and Cox. So this is just a little introduction to this chapter today. We're looking at Libra-Sun interaction. Now, when we consider what the sun is the ultimate source of power in the solar system, and the sign inhabited by the sun is also the primary source that powers our identity. The moon is the individual identity, but the sun determines how brightly that identity shines. It's a good way of putting it. Our mastery over the sun's sign determines how efficiently we can draw attention to the radiance of our unique personality. The brighter our identity shines, the easier it becomes to establish a life where we get to make our own rules, where we get to be the king of our kingdom. That's the idea that the sun is supposed to produce. And this is part of the reason why Libra Sun men can have a little bit of difficulty, because they lead by, in a way, the cohesion with the social harmony of the people around them, for better or worse, sometimes for better. Since the sun generates its power and light by burning its own self, it produces the desire to sacrifice other aspects of life in order to devote ourselves to master the sign that the sun occupies. If the sun is healthy, the radiance with which we shine naturally inspires people to follow us into the kingdom we are building. Mastery over the sun's sign makes us natural leaders in situations where its particular abilities are useful. And this includes the sign of Libra. So we have to understand that Libra is affected by the sun as much as the sun is affected by Libra. This is very much a Vedic way of thinking about sun signs. And for all of us, we all have all signs in our chart, even if there's no planets or no house cusps there. It means something to all of us. So the Libra sun individual, especially if the sun is well placed there, if it's got aspects from Mars, if it's got aspects from Jupiter or the moon, especially from Jupiter, the great benefic, then the sun will shine and radiate with the strength of what we would typically understand to be coming through the sign of Libra. And there are many powerful people who have been born who use the social ladder, they use diplomacy, they use bureaucracy. There's a lot of politicians with Libra sun who have positive aspects to their sun, who are born in a time that's conducive to the sun's strength, and who do great things in the world. So this is something we have to consider when we're thinking about the sun in Libra. Libra, and this is coming from Pratyush Bhattacharya, Libra enables us to form productive partnerships with people on the basis of their resourcefulness. The following are the traits typically observed in a personality influenced by the Libra-Sun interaction. For Libra-Sun, there's a strong tendency to form partnerships with people more resourceful and competent than them. Libra-Sun people depend heavily on their partner's cooperation while tackling problems, inhibiting them from following their inspiration. They depend on their partner's cooperation. There's a natural ability in Libra men to read people and assess their potential in terms of what each individual may add to their life. They're good at seeing, what's this person going to add to everything that I've got going on. A real strong judge of character in the Libra. Libra sun is a natural expertise and negotiation, and this enables them to convince people to give them what they want at the cost of coming off as nagging. They can kind of seem like they are nagging people to get what they want instead of just taking it, like the Aries sun sort of consciousness. For Libra man, there's a strong need to follow social trends in order to remain relevant and to maintain their status in the dominance hierarchy, no matter how opposing that trend might be to their personal vision. They'll always abide by what's hot, even when what's hot is not close to their personal taste or soul ideal. The airy nature of Libra wants the Libra man to gain. Hey, howdy, hey, folks. Looks like my computer kicked us out for just a moment there. So, I guess that we're dealing with some internet issues. Looks like I'm still all good. We're live on YouTube still. So we're just going to keep on rocking and rolling. I hope you guys are all still here with me and hanging out. Sorry if you got disconnected there. I'm just going to type to everybody. We are still rolling. Story of my life. Trying to get used to doing this live stream situation. I hope everybody can still be hanging out with me. Thank you, Mia Moore. My friend Mia Moore is letting me know that they are still here. God bless you. That is making my life much easier. Okay, so we're still alive, ladies and germs, and everything in between. Now let's finish off talking about where we were at with the Libra man, the Libra sun man. Because we were talking about the sun in Libra, and we know that the sun is debilitated in Libra. As a Leo, sometimes I like to just speak objectively to the difficulties that could be expected in a sign placement. As you can guess, because of this need to follow social trends in order to remain relevant and to maintain their status in the dominance hierarchy, Libra is not all that compatible with the sun's desire to build an original empire. Right? We said that the sun is the king and wants to be the king of the kingdom. Libra is the ultimate social sign, which enables us to build relationships with influential people in order to rise through rungs of the socio-economic ladder. There's no room for originality or sacrifice in Libra in this socio-political ladder. This sign only enables us to compromise our individuality to develop better relationships. Of course, some planets are well served by that, but the sun is not. The soul is not. There is no joy in compromising the soul. Thank you, my friend Susie Underwood, for letting me know that you're still here and watching. Sorry about the disconnect there. So there's no joy in compromising the soul, and this is where Libra sun men and women can have a problem. While Libra's ability is very useful for other planets, it is absolutely dissonant for the sun, men and women alike. Originality involves defying the rules of the society, therefore losing the support of the mainstream. This is sometimes what we have to do in order to do anything great. Libra is simply incapable of doing that. Therefore, Libra is considered the worst sign for the sun. And again, we are only talking about the sun, the sign. So when we consider that the sign is debilitated, we always have to keep that in mind. There's so much other things going on in the chart that can help us to stay connected to our source consciousness, to our soul. You know, even the fifth house, you know, if our fifth house is strong, if our ninth house is strong, if our 10th house is strong, all of these things can play into the strengths that we have in the themes related to the sun. But these themes will be always apparent for anyone with Libra sun. Now, for everybody watching, it's time to get into the fun, juicy stuff. We're just going to start talking about sextrology, the astrology of sex and the sexes. I'm thankful for everybody who's been hanging out with us so far. We have our friend Nigel Longhurst, Maddie Longhurst, that is. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Maddie. And for everybody else who's watching and hanging out, I'm really glad to have you guys here for this live performance of a reading. I'm getting used to this stuff. I'm getting used to doing the live thing, and I'm having fun with it. I'm sure it will build the more we do it. I'm going to try to keep doing this every Sunday, usually around 11. Today I had to do it at 1 because I was doing a meditation with RYAN KURCZAK'S, my meditation teacher and my astrology teacher. Without further ado, as we go along here, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, I'm going to be reading from our book, our source text. As I go along, feel free to ask any questions, have any comments. There are sections in this book, which means I'm probably going to go through a whole section so I don't lose the train of thought or the flow. And then we'll check out all our questions at the end of each section so we don't get too knocked out on our flow. Now, without further ado, we are going to start getting into the character of Libra man, which the people in Sextrology, there's a name for each person. And Sextrology calls Libra man the character. Kind of an interesting image when you think about it. Character is an external arc of personality form. And somebody who slips into a character is not exactly being honest to themselves. Not always. But if what is honest to themselves is them slipping into different characters, then maybe they are. Libra is known to be the social chameleon. So, our writers begin. Libra is the zodiac's Renaissance man. For the Libra man, life is art, and he approaches existence as would a painter faced with a blank canvas, feeling empowered to create a world based solely on his idealized visions, while striving to capture sweeping abstract reality, or something that I haven't quite figured out. I'm sure as time goes on, I'm going to have it figured out, but I still have a few people hanging out with me. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Now, we are going to start rolling again, and however this is going to work is how it's going to work. I think it might be because I've got different people using the internet in my house. But we are here. I've tried a new backup server on my broadcaster. We're going to try again, and we're going to see if we get kicked out. Thank you, everybody who's hanging out and watching with me. Now, we're going to start talking again about Libra man. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Maddie. And thank you, Miamor, for hanging out with me and being a part of this broadcast. And everybody else who's hanging out. Now, we were just talking about Libra man. They are considered to be the zodiac's Renaissance man. He approaches existence as would a painter faced with a blank canvas. Now we see that Libra is naturally attuned to the ordered, non-chaotic energies of the universe. And Libra is thus both highly principled and also very philosophical minded. Libra is a perfectionist, if not a Platonist, forever focusing on conditions that might bring betterment both for himself and for others. And yet, wearing rose-colored glasses can also set him up for great disappointment. Libra, as the western side of the zodiac, can really mean the expectations, the ideas, as opposed to the pure energy of Aries. So this is where this rose-colored glasses can come from. But we need people like this to fit us into the mold of the perfect circle, even though a perfect circle doesn't exist. This is where that disappointment comes in. This is the scales that the Libra has to balance. Libra is liberal in his beliefs. He's a pioneer on the intellectual plane. And this often puts him at odds with the more stodgy aspects of society. Despite his free thinking, Libra is typically traditional in his need for a steady relationship, which nonetheless doesn't preclude extracurricular dalliances in thought or deed. Libra man is attracted to an independent female, an intellectual equal with whom he can live in mutual harmony while still maintaining separate spheres of influence. Love for the Libra man is a meeting of the minds, and a woman must share his appreciation for highbrow ideals, aesthetics, and a sensual, if not etheric, approach to sex. Now, same-gender relationships, as we're going to see closer to the end of this reading, same-gender homoerotic relationships with Libra man take on a brotherly quality, often prohibiting the Libra from accessing deep romantic feelings. He keeps things light with a lover, his bonds smacking of glorified friendships, far more homoerotic in nature than blatantly hot and heavy. It's more of like a Scorpio, Aries, fire and water sign deal. So, this is us getting into the nature of Libra man. All these books have a little bit of an intro, talking about the overall character. And then the first chapter that we get into is talking about the sign in mind of the sign in question. In this case, we're talking about Libra man. So, this is the Libra, the sign, as it relates to the sun and the Libra man's mind. As usual, this is a live broadcast. Feel free to ask any questions or make any sort of little points. For example, we see Maddie is watching with much interest as their partner has Venus in Libra in the 12th house. So this will give a little bit of insight into any planet in the sign of Libra, but as we've said, it's particularly pertaining to the sun in Libra. But the Libra archetypes are always going to come through no matter what. Libra, like the earth sign Taurus, is ruled by Venus. Here in this air sign, however, the planet's signature aesthetic energy manifests on the astral, mental, and social level rather than upon the physical, material one. This is Venus we're talking about. Venus and Taurus is physical, material. The Libra rulership of Venus plays on the aesthetic energy of the astral, mental, and social levels. Where Taurus is a fixed feminine sign, therefore acting like a magnet for what are arguably subjective Venusian qualities of beauty, pleasure, unity, and even love. On the sensible plane, Libra is a cardinal, active, initiatory, objective masculine sign. Taurus being subjective feminine, Libra being objective masculine. And Libra thus projects himself on the intellectual plane as a purveyor of Venusian principles in the abstract. Love, grace, beauty, art, balance, and harmony as thought forms and shiny ideals. Taurus is the zodiac's Adonai. Venus, Aphrodite's love object. While Libra man, instead, is a rather masculinized version of the goddess under whose namesake Libra was born. This is the proverbial Venus as a boy. Superficially, he recalls Cupid, not only in his signature cherubic appearance, but in the combined energy of Venus and Mars, the imp's mythical parents, love and war, respectively, being incorporated into the male sign of Libra, who, kicking off the second half of the zodiac, personifies a big switcheroo from the basic astrological layout initiated in the first half. Psychedelic. These writers really put a lot of astrological wisdom into here. There's a switcheroo of an entire sort from Libra onward that is the axial reflection of all that was initiated from Aries to Virgo. In the first half of the zodiac, Aries is a masculine sign fittingly ruled by the warrior Mars, the objective male principle, followed by the female Taurus, aptly governed by Venus, the subjective female principle. Here on the flip side, in the second half of the zodiac, and thus the third quadrant of the mind, Libra represents the objective male Venus, just as its following sign, Scorpio, portrays the subjective female Mars, being traditionally ruled by Mars. That's Scorpio. It's rather simple math. Libra is the higher octave of Aries, its so-called opposite sign, while not really being its opposite at all. On the contrary, both are cardinal signs with similar mottos. The Aryan I am motto and the Libran we are. I balance is also the creed of Libra. Both Aries and Libra are trailblazers in spirit, fire, and ideas, air, respectively. My friend Maddie is just saying that your partner actually has the sun in Libra in the 12th house. Perfect. So you should get something out of this, Maddie, because we are more speaking to the sun in Libra than anything in this reading. Now, Cupid comparisons aside, the overriding mythical archetype from which Libra draws his exceptional character is Apollo of the Greek myths. The folks in this book really get into the Greek mythology, which is cool. Apollo is, first and foremost, the god of light, the most vivid portrayal of Libra's exclusive cardinal air combination. It's the very depiction of etheric power. Metaphorically, too, light, as in the term enlightenment, is a symbol of reason, and Apollo is the god of reason, as well as he's also the god of order. His own Venus as a boy status is well documented by scholars. A rather late addition to the Greek pantheon, Apollo usurped much of what were previously Aphrodite's special provinces, including the service of the Muses, music, art, history, dance, astronomy, etc., as well as previously female deity domains such as healing and prophecy. Apollo is a man who comes into these things that were once heralded by the feminine consciousness. Apollo, as a personification of classic, indeed Platonic, Hellenic civilization, the god Apollo symbolizes the imposition of patriarchal society on a previously matriarchal one. As such, Aphrodite was demoted to goddess of love and beauty once Apollo hit the scene. Apollo, as light, must be seen in contrast to Helios, the sun god, just as Libra has a far different version of the world than does the Leo man, who is ruled by the sun and its more ancient archetype. The sun and Leo typify the divine rule of kings, apparent in the Leo male personality. Libra, however, is associated with democracy, just one of many astral Venusian high ideals, which sees power being spread out evenly upon the citizenry, albeit in the original Athenian version, a strictly male populace, which is not quite ideal. It's just how things were back in history. This is certainly the most striking interpretation of the Libran motto, we are, and the sign's concept of balance, in that power is shared evenly via vote amongst the people. Indeed, as history will have it, time and time again, reason is the universal power of the human mind that causes the overthrow of monarchical rule. Just as Libra is associated with dusk, with evening, graced as it is with cool, even light, and the appearance of shining Venus, in contrast to the blaring high noon of August Leo. So does the sole divine power of Leo become diffused via Libra among the many. It's democracy, right? It's interesting that Venus is the third house from Leo. Fittingly, the ancient Hebrew equivalent of Apollo is Lucifer, meaning the light bringer, who attempted to snatch the sun god's power to distribute to mankind. It's the psychedelic. Of course, Libra as Lucifer, was later demonized in biblical tradition as Satan, a character who not only represents Libra's dark side, just as Apollo had his own shadow self, Python, the god of the pit, often referred to as the inclusive Apollo Python. But, as we'll see, it is the male sign of Scorpio who tends to embody much of this underworld character, since, as astrologer Dane Rudyard once said, signs respond to the excesses of their previous sign. And indeed, Scorpio in many ways personifies a backlash to Libra's notoriously idealized visions of life. Scorpio is the one finding out, through its meticulous research and desire to embody, what exactly Libra is idealizing and proselytizing about. Most individuals, however, are charmed by the principled, artistic Libran view of existence. Even though he typically comes on strong, like his patron Apollo, unapologetically presiding over circumstance with an inherent superior demeanor that is rarely ever despotic enough to justify any outright attacks against him, even from the Leo and Scorpio men of the world. Most people are charmed by this principled character. No matter how much of an imposer, if not a suspected imposter, the Libra may appear to be, Libra is nonetheless a die-hard diplomatic envoy of democracy. Still, even such civilized states require such a president as he. The sign of the scales, indeed, represents the Apollonian principle in the universe, that which is defined as well-balanced, poised, ordered, and disciplined. And its native sons embody such attributes, that is, the Libras embody this Apollonian principle. As the natural ruler of the 7th astrological house, home to such concepts as harmony, equality, cooperation, and agreement, for the sign of Libra, order is, well, the first order of the day. Over and over, in myriad metaphysical contexts, the number 7 is employed as the numerical equivalent of order in the universe. 7 heavens, 7 vices, 7 virtues, 7 chakras, even 7 notes to a scale, or the scales, divined from the music of the celestial spheres. 7 is Apollo's sacred number, and he drove a chariot of 7 swans. Light itself is made up of the 7 colors of the spectrum. Little wonder that Libra man is the personification of enlightened qualities, particularly that well-worn mental faculty of reason. he simply cannot abide the more dark, chaotic read, i.e. the subconscious side of life. Not to mention his flying off the handle should a pipe spring a leak or someone throw a monkey wrench into his schedule. His focus is on such uber-conscious notions as can be defined or imposed upon the world for the purpose of advancing ideas. To his mind, anything else is just self-absorbed wallowing. Ice Phoenix, our friend Ice Phoenix is saying that they've heard Libra is a highly sexual sign, although Scorpio and Aries seem more of a sexual sign. Even Leo and Gemini perhaps a little more than Libra also. Libra is ruled by Venus, which is a sexual planet, but they don't get into the energy like these other signs you're talking about. They have more of this etheric quality. But again, if the other things are going on in the chart, this ethericness will make them be deliciously all about sexuality. And it's even in the mental sphere that they are especially like kink and the idea of sensuality, as we're going to see as we go along. So, the world of light, visible existence, as well as enlightened ideology, is Libra's domain. Herein, Libra finds more than enough to occupy his time and energy, with little need for delving into the realm of the subconscious. I'm just going to plug in my phone here, folks. All the things today, you know what I'm saying? Just been eclipse energy for me lately. So the world of light is Libra's domain. He finds more than enough to occupy his time and energy, with little need for delving into the realm of the subconscious. Or so he thinks. Libra has a snap-out-of-it approach to other people's problems. Just as he tends to ignore his own darker feelings. However, being so oriented towards the lighter side of life, he may cast that much more of a shadow, repressing negative feelings that will, at time, beg to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, Libra revels in the light of day world, arguably that of appearances, never feeling compelled to limit himself to any one area of interest, particularly in the realms of the liberal or fine arts. As the personification of the Venusian Apollonian principle, he's bound to immerse himself in the objective creation of beautiful things, just as he vividly illustrates the exploration of exquisite ideas. As well, given the inheritance of his patron god's myriad artistic domains, Libra tends to be talented in a great many areas. The word talent, by the way, stems from the Latin talentum, which fittingly means balance. So Libra is talented in a great many areas without necessarily specializing in any particular one. It's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none sort of situation. This laying claim to numerous disciplines often raises more than a few eyebrows, winning him the reputation for being a dabbler or a lightweight, pun intended. The medium through which he channels his talent is almost beside the point. To his mind, all is poetry, whether in writing, music, painting, dance, decorating, or design. Lyricism is a Libran keynote, and through it, he forever seeks to uplift his spirit. The spirit, that is, not just his own. Libra can't help but radiate those planetary principles that he personifies. He brims with notions that add more beauty, harmony, balance, equality, and indeed love to human existence. When John Lennon sang "All You Need Is Love," he mightn't have realized how Libran he was being. John Lennon was indeed a Libra born in the year of the dragon. Love, in its most basic form of appreciation, is what Libra beams outward in every which way, appreciating each situation in a threefold manner. First, he assesses that which he encounters. Second, he accentuates the positive, focusing on and drawing out what is inherently good in any circumstance. And in so doing, third, he improves situations, leaving them far better than he found them. He mainly turns this ameliorative energy onto himself, sussing out what he may best offer the world, and intensifying such qualities. The seventh house rules, amongst other things, one's strongest personality traits. As the seventh astrological sign, Libra ushers in the third quadrant of the zodiac, that which is concerned with the metaphysical level of the mind, and thus the perception of existence. The Libra male is sexually aligned with the masculine element polarity of his sign, air and fire being masculine, while water and earth are feminine. And thus he embodies the cardinal air evolutionary thoughts he espouses. In a sense, Libra man is himself an idea. The scales is the only inanimate symbol in all of the zodiac, an interesting point. All the others being either human or animal. Libra is so much his ideals, those principles that define his character, that his strongest personality traits are typically all he'll show to the world. Unlike Aries with its "I am" motto, signaling pure physical being, and the ego, Libra is focused on the cultivation of a character, both in the sense of a principled quality, as well as in the development of an often eccentric persona. These two dynamics typically being fused into one great big personality. Some, like those Scorpios with their X-ray eyes, such as mine, may feel that the Libra is put on, phony, plastic, hiding behind its devised self to disallow others to glimpse the real him. I get what this is saying. I'm a Scorpio, but I love Libras, so I just wanted to say that. But I see what it's saying. Scorpio types can tend to see through the character that they display and convey. To the zodiac's artist, however, the Libra, there is no crime in self-creation. Indeed, Libra begs the question, are we not all, in one way or another, beings of our own divining? Though in truth, many Libran men adopt fairly over-the-top alter egos, lending new meaning to the sign's secondary motto, "We are." A list of famous scales guys, Libras, which includes Sting, Flea, Usher, Eminem, Jelly Roll Morton, Meatloaf, John Cougar Mellencamp, Snoop Dogg, Buster Keaton, Groucho Marx, Le Corbusier, E. Cummings, and even John Lennon, and in declaring himself the Walrus, all of these people reveal that the creation of an alias is a particularly Libran occupation. Right, so John Lennon called himself the Walrus. Groucho Marx, Meatloaf, John Cougar Mellencamp, Sting, Flea, Snoop Dogg. This fascination with characterization has also led many Librans to become playwrights, poets, and novelists. This includes Arthur Miller, Oscar Wilde, Eugene O'Neill, Harold Pinter, Louis Aragon, T.S. Eliot, F. Scott Fitzgerald, William Faulkner, Gore Vidal, Truman Capote, and Shelf Silverstein were all born under the sign of Libra. Yet, despite a shiny outward disposition, most Libras hide a fiercely dark side, one that may eventually threaten to undo them. Viewing himself so subjectively, Libra systematically invents an image based on what he sees as his finest characteristics and polishes it to a shine. Venus's mirror-like glyph, looks like a little hand mirror, symbolizes the Libran's ability to look at himself from this subjective perspective as one would look at a work of art, making any necessary changes to his person as he sees fit, accentuating the positive while obscuring any anti-Apollonian imbalances. He thus masks the pain of feeling deficient. For as much as the 7th house is that of striking personality traits, it also highlights that which one lacks. This selective perception of self is a source of much psychological suppression, and one that is deeply rooted in Libra's childhood rearing. Now we're just about to get into the childhood of the typical Libra boy. It's one of the reasons why I love this book, is that it goes so deep into all these different things. My friend Alice in Acidland is enjoying my Leo hair. I appreciate it. Another Libran is Jackson Brown, my friend Susie Underwood tells us. So thanks so much, folks, for watching. As usual, we're kind of hanging out doing this live thing, so if anybody wants to chime in, feel free. I'm going to do my best to sort of speak to things, and especially if I see any big sort of questions that I can speak to, I'll probably try and get them to at the end of a section. I'm feeling out how I'm doing this, folks. You're seeing the birth of it, so I hope you're enjoying hanging out while we figure this whole thing out. This is my first live stream for a long time for all those watching. Thank you so much for hanging out on this fun Sunday. Now, what is the life of the Libra male child tend to look like? Keep in mind that they are really giving this the depiction that would be catering to the character of Libra sun. Anybody can have things in their first house, especially their second house, as regards like, the erotic psyche. The third house as regards like the capacity to act through puberty on the erotic psyche, especially for a man. The fourth house has a lot to do with the mother and the relationship of one's homestead in regards to childhood. There's so much to consider here, but this is typically what the archetype of the Libra sun will bring out for the essence of the character of the child who will be moving through all those things that are in those houses of a person's astrology chart, right? Got to consider that astrology is such a spider web, but it's cool that when we read books like this to really get a deep x-ray vision of each strand of the spider web. It's coming from me, Scorpio, x-ray. The Libra male child is typically born to bickering parents, or at least reared at a time in their lives when they are at odds, when the parents are at odds. Because the cardinal heir child is precocious, often labeled a mini adult, an early nod to his sign's association with the human ages of 42 to 49. That's cool. So this book says that there's a sign age association. It's like that looks at the typical human age, or the human lifespan, which I believe basically goes till about, I'm just going to check this out real quick here. According to this book, the typical average age is that people end at 84. So this is breaking that up into 12. That's what this book is doing by saying that the Libra's sign age association is 42 to 49. It's like halfway through the life. So the Libra child is kind of a mini adult. He sees his parents and everyone else as his equals. Where many children cower when faced with parental conflict, the Libra boy wants to mediate and indeed ameliorate the situation. He may sit his parents down, one on either side, and seek reconciliation. His attempts to harmonize usually work, at least on the surface, and from an early age, he begins to believe that all difficulties can be smoothed over. His family life may look rosy on the surface, but tensions are lurking disastrously underneath. Tension, endemic to walking any tightrope, emotional or otherwise, is what actually necessitates the Libra boy's acquisition of balance. Just as his female counterpart, the Libra woman, the Libra girl, is typically a child of divorce, giving rise to her ability to easily cut people from her life to retain an equilibrium. The Libra male, whose parents usually stay together, rarely learns to justify, rationalize, and strike balances within given circumstances and even within his own psyche. Focused on keeping the peace, the Apollonian child presents himself to his parents as a goody-goody who won't add strife to their life, but will instead be a source of pride and appreciation, itself a two-way street. Putting on a mantle of the perfect child, the Libra child hopes will make his parents happy and thus keep them together by his being so picture perfect and happy. In trying to appear the ideal child, he may become a fusspot, if not an outright worrier. Afraid of underlying tensions, he will stick close to home and become especially tied to his mother's apron strings, often panicked at leaving the nest as a kid. The Libra child often holds to his mother's apron strings and gets panicked at leaving the nest as a kid for fear of not being on hand to mediate difficulties should they arise. Like a good, co-pilot, or, like I'm thinking of like the second mate on a ship, something like that, which is a bit of a heavy thing for a kid to do. Oftentimes the Libra man, as a child, will be fantasizing about lunch while he's eating breakfast, fantasizing about being an adult while being a kid. And then what happens when they get older is that their lunch is right in front of them and they're fantasizing about being young again and the breakfast that they didn't get to eat. He puts so much effort into tap dancing, even at a tender kindergarten age. He may become aware of his own pretenses. He might be that child who will haunt his parents with the perpetual question, "Do you really love me?" as a combined result of their distracted natures and his own inkling that he isn't quite showing them, or anybody for that matter, his true self. In a modern retelling of medieval tales of the oath, literally defined as a child substitute or imposter placed in the stead of a real child abducted by elves, fairies, or witches, the boy robot David in Steven Spielberg's film AI, standing for one very Libran concept of artificial intelligence. David, the boy robot, is an epitomic male scales child model. He's an epitome of the male scales child. Am I a real boy? It's like Pinocchio. Coming along in his parents' life at a time when their marriage is hanging by a thread, David, ironically meaning beloved, is programmed to be the perfect child. And as such, he is programmed to love his folks unconditionally. However, in so doing, he only ever seems to see parental love devoid of selfishness, eluding him. Libra boy, like David, is wired to believe that he can make everything right for his loved ones. And because the scale guy's own parents do typically stick it out, at least for appearance's sake, he's conditioned to believe that this is a possible dynamic. Venus signifying eternal unity, for which to strive. Well into adulthood, he is notoriously unable to let go of situations, people, and obstacles in his life. With rose-colored glasses firmly in place, he feels there's nothing in life that can't be worked out. All one needs, he's convinced, is love. Love is all you need. So I'm just quickly reading our little questions here that we have in our chat. Someone has asked, does this relate with the sun in the 7th? I would say no. Don't confuse signs with houses. Even though they have similar themes and arcs, there's going to be things that do relate to each other. The sun in the 7th would be someone who's interested in dealing with marriage and with keeping things together, with aesthetics and these sorts of things. Libra, the sign, is a very much... The signs are like grounded in material reality. The houses is how our rising signs perceives the material reality. And it tends to just be very different. It's a different dimension of astrology. So I wouldn't correlate. There's things you can see here that are similar, just as the general, the sun abiding with Libran or Venusian themes. But the sun in Libra is going to have this kind of childhood, and the sun in the 7th might not necessarily, right? If you're a Libra rising and you've got the sun in Aries, the sun in Aries child is going to live a very different sort of childhood than this child. Even though they'd be a Libra rising, there'd be similarities, but it would be physically different. Maddie is saying that they've got a Libra ascendant, and they're recognizing about half as them. So how do you see the difference between sun sign and the ascendant? The sun and the ascendant are very different. The sun in astrology, it correlates with the bones. It's a planet. It correlates with physical energy. The rising sign is how we perceive the energies, how we are oriented to perceive the energies of the planets in the galaxy. So Libra ascendant will probably see similarities here. For all of us hanging out, if you just want to be educated about the sign of Libra, there's going to be a lot here. Apollo, all these sorts of things. But when it comes to what we expect the life of a Libra sun child to experience, for example, we can't say that a Libra rising is going to experience the same things because they are different in this way. The Libra rising is a personality thing. The sun is more of like the physical bones of the life path that can be expected a person will have to move through early in life and then midlife and then at the end of their life. That's what we're talking about in this book. But if you are a Libra rising, or if you have any important placements of Libra, you are going to find important, useful, archetypal information in these readings. So feel free to enjoy them, but don't take them as wholesale as you would the Libra sun male. Especially, we are going to be reading about the physical depiction of Libra man, the body and soul. And that talks about the dimples. He's got straight but flattened nose. They really go into the physical character of the Libra man, and that's going to be based on the sun sign, not the rising sign. So you'll see some of it in here, but keep in mind that the author's intention was the sun in Libra as a man. That's really the best I can say, because these authors are probably intuiting just the archetype of Libra in general, because they're funny, they're just trying to be witty, and by being witty, they're probably spilling the archetype a little bit, but this is the intention of the writers, so everybody knows. So, the Libra boy is convinced, that all things can be patched over with love, with compassion, with a vision for what would be best, ideally, for better or worse. By virtue of his planetary ruler, Libra, by virtue of his planetary rule, which is Venus, Libra is attracted to feminine beauty from a young age, generally preferring the friendship of girls, while avoiding the more rough-and-tumble world of male bonding rituals, which strike his Apollonian sensibilities as disorderly and crude. With puberty, however, everything switches. Female friends give in to their burgeoning hormones and focus on the more physically overt males in their midst, often leaving the notoriously androgynous Libra suddenly out in the cold. Shunned, even ridiculed by other males, who may label his artistic tendencies as mere artifice, part and parcel of his not being a real functioning boy, effete if not effeminate, as well as now being all but ignored by the girls who once fueled his existence. The Libra, as he gets older into teenagehood, finds himself at odds. Being feminine for a young boy prepubescent is completely fine, and he wins the affection of girls and friends because he can relate with girls, and he loves the beauty of girls and women when he's younger. But he finds himself at odds as he comes of age. As the masculine reinterpretation of his uber-feminine planetary namesake, Venus, the artsy Apollonian male feels caught in the balance, in a world divided strictly along gender lines. I'm sure a lot of Libra men have come into today's time with a lot of experiences that would contribute to them being speaking to the current culture of non-gender norms, and being able to speak to it and to convey what this idealization of gender truly is and what it means for the soul. The Libra man, as a teenager, will try to find his niche, searching himself for those infamous strong personality traits, anything outstanding that might win him recognition and thus a place in the social pantheon. For although he may be concentrated on cultivating so distinct an individual character. He fears and hopes to avoid being relegated to the nether regions of pure oblivion. Talents become the Libra man's focus, and he means to make a mark with any accomplishments that he might display. It's interesting that the Aries male, just as a teenager, if you read about it in my other video, I've done this series for a while, and I've already done Aries, Scorpio, and Taurus. Aries, Scorpio, and Taurus I've already done in my previous sextrology videos. And the Aries teenager tends to not do much, but they just use pure raw energy, and they get into sports and they like to win. Libra man doesn't need to win, he just needs to be individual and unique, but really has to, they feel the need to really compensate and to push for this magical action that they can display, for better or worse to his inherent self-esteem. He'll make up with stylistic flair what he lacks in manly appearance. If mankind still lived in the jungle, Leo, with his survival of the fittest attitude, might indeed reign supreme. But in modern society, a world built upon high ideals and Apollonian rules of democratic civilization, a strikingly less natural man such as Libra is able to thrive in modern urban civilization society. The Leo, in the ways of the old times, might win by might. The might makes right rule. But in today's time, Libra is able to thrive. Living by his characteristically Wildian wits, Libra man is the preeminent intellectual and sophisticate of the zodiac. With these distinctions, he hopes to trump any inborn he-men at the game of life and the game of love. Meanwhile, he may experience a sense of self-loathing, which he, of course, represses because that's not pure and Apollonian. If not feeling naturally equipped with enviably masculine endowments, such as major muscles or rugged athleticism. Meaning if he's not a big, beefy beefcake, which he sees to be an archetype of the male character, then he may repress some self-loathing, is what this is kind of saying. Still, Libra masks his deep-seated disappointment behind an insouciant, devil-may-care demeanor. He strikes attitudes as his best defense against feeling down and out. Reinvention, indeed recreation of self, is his best weapon for survival in the dog-eat-dog world of male dominance and sexual conquest. Similarly, recreation, in that other sense of the word, becomes his main objective in life, adopting a bon vivant persona. The Libran sybarite seeks out those Venusian pleasures the world has to offer, dabbling in all things arty, if not affected, employing his trademark bon mot in the courting of the beau monde. Cool. Fancy French words. So that has been the mind and soul of the Libra man. The next thing we're going to get into is that was the sign in the mind of the Libra man. Now we're getting into body and soul. Now I'm going to read what we've got going on in our comments. We can just see a few friends are hanging out and enjoying the chats that we've got going on. Mostly just chatting and chilling. So, as usual, this is a live stream. If anyone's got questions, feel free to hang out and ask them, or just chat. I'd like to say that one of the reasons that I got into this book really, this book got me into astrology. It's because I first got into astrology to disprove it. I've often told this story. I thought it was ridiculous, and I wanted to research it for myself and embody it and see if I was embodying it. So I found this book, and I read about the Scorpio man. And I read the first little bit of the sign in the mind. I was like, wow, okay, I see it. I really do see it. But it was when I read this part, the body and the soul of my own sign, which is Scorpio. When I read the Scorpio sun body and soul section, I was floored. And I was convinced that there's more to astrology than I thought, because this book gets so into the nitty-gritty details of the physical attributes of the signs and the sun and its sign. So let's see if you guys agree with me. I think this is one of the clarifying dimensions of this book, and it's always fun to read. This is us talking about the body and soul of Libra man. Libra man may be the most vivid character on the astrological block. From his naturally animated features to his exaggerated expressions and whimsical style of dress, the Scales guy certainly stands out in a crowd. Eternally youthful and more cute than classically handsome, Libra man can appear almost cartoonish, if not decidedly comical in his appearance. Priding himself on the development of a personalized style, this baby-faced dandy likes to bounce around town, popping seamlessly in and out of diverse social settings, easily adapting and cleverly wardrobed to fit any given situation. Somewhat taller and leaner than other men in his family, he still manages to look positively cherubic. His face is round, rubbery, and wholly revealed by an extremely high hairline. His locks are curly or wispy, though fine. His slanting, deep-set eyes are encased by fleshy lids. His cheeks may be dimpled. His straight, though slightly flattened and pliable nose seems almost cartilage-free. And then there's his mouth, a rather tiny horizontal slit that curls down at the edges into a slight frown, topped by a furled, aptly coined Cupid's bow of an upper lip, lending him an expression like that of a baby poised on the brink of a cry. I think that's an interesting way of putting it. I just love the author's writing. Despite an almost Muppet-like appearance, there is something melancholic in the Libra man's countenance, like a sad clown designed to make others laugh. Indeed, the possession of exceptional wit is a Libran birthright, and he is famous for pleasantly, placidly listening to others' discourse, only to interject well-placed one-liners. He is a master of wordplay, innuendo, irony, and double entendre, though it may take others a moment to fully grasp the gist of his economic commentary. A raucous explosion of laughter ensues as the full import of what he's saying finally takes hold. Despite any feigned jadedness, Libra man loves to socialize, though in truth it is more apt to say he hates to be alone. Few people get chummier faster than Libra, as he tends to embrace strangers as if they were long-lost kin. His instinct is to be inclusive in all situations. Being so gregarious a creature, Libra is often misconstrued as a superficial partygoer by the more serious-minded individuals in the zodiac. But Loneliness and depression are not unknown to the scales guy. He simply considers it rude to brood in public, well accustomed as he is to switching off the darker stirrings of his soul. Often nearly pretty in appearance, Libra has a rounded musculature that only contributes to his Cupid doll appearance and countenance. His shoulders, especially, can be curved and narrow. He may be somewhat barrel-chested, his torso truncated and soft in proportion to trademark long, lean limbs. And Libra is generally short-waisted, with slender hips, a narrow pelvis, and a shortened lower back. The hinge region is ruled by his sign, Libra, being the balancing point between the upper and lower bodies. This seems to correlate to many a Libra man suffering from sciatica, lumbago, and kidney complaints. The sun in any sign tends to burn a little bit of what's going on in that. Yeah, well, the sun burns whatever it touches, so the sun in every sign tends to do a bit of damage to the medical astral significations of that sign. Looks like I skipped a bit there. The sun burns anything that it touches as related to the medical astrological significations of that thing or the sign that it's in, just in case that didn't come through. Libra man is less hairy than other men in his family, and what body fuzz he does have will be downy, soft, and lightly hued. He's rather flexible, often excelling at such graceful sports as gymnastics, diving, or even wrestling. As he's hard to pin down physically as he is psychologically. His private parts are rather textbook in nature, being amply endowed, though rarely overly so, boasting bits and pieces as user-friendly in appearance as he looks to be, all pink and prettily constructed, never distinctly dark or deviously wrought in any way, shape, or form. I've got some bots happening. Probably going to eventually, I'm going to have to get someone to get rid of the bots in the chat. Looking so much the cute and cuddly teddy bear of a man, Libra man often has a hard time being taken seriously. Even when he's bone thin, there is always something of the little doughboy about Libra that may prohibit him, with few exceptions, from appearing purely lanky. His signature lack of beard, it can take him 2 days to grow a 5 o'clock shadow, further enforces this air of artificiality. Not surprisingly, he may seem particularly suspect to other men, even when women find his conversation endlessly entertaining. Often, other guys are too quick to consider him no real man, a label that may be symptomatic of his notorious interest in aesthetics, or of his predestined inability to divorce himself from the uber-femininity of his ruling planet Venus. Still, because Libra is a masculine polarity sign, he projects plenty of male aggression, albeit at the cerebral and verbal level, that many men find confrontational, especially when coming from so floppy a muppet. It doesn't help that Libra is so terribly driven in creative endeavors, those that strict machos might tag frou-frou in nature. On top of everything else, the Libran is no sheep, and die-hard conservative conformists tend to resent the Libra's naturally liberal outlook in life. If there's one thing Libra believes, and he will have you know, it's that he's special and he's a total original. Having lovingly embraced and fostered his standout personality traits, Libra cloaks himself in these distinctions. That blanket-touting Peanuts character, Linus, comes to mind, who's a quintessentially Libra male archetype. Idealistic, intellectual, and rational, but also ultra-sensitive and insecure. And who, like Apollo, is distinguished as a great orator, shedding light on situations by extracting their true meaning. Linus, a name derived from the Greek linos, meaning flaxseed, was indeed a son of Apollo, whom the god accidentally killed in sport, something of which Charles Schulz may have been aware. Charles Schulz being the writer of the Peanuts cartoons. In classic literature, the male Libran character comes down to us as Pip, also meaning seed, in Charles Dickens's Great Expectations. Indeed, just as the sign of Aries represents physical seeds, the origin of life befitting its sparky cardinal fire status of Aries, the sign of Libra is about the sowing of ideological seeds, creating new life and order on the intellectual plane in keeping with its cardinal air association. Apollo's domain of prophecy is one and the same with having great expectations. Linus, too, had lofty prospects, lest we forget his waiting on that great proverbial great pumpkin. Interesting. Libra man is a pip, all right. Even if he works in a huge corporate hive, he will exhibit a decided flair in both manner and fashion sense. Libra pushes the envelope, often along whimsical retro lines. But for all his panache, he may seem too forced a poser. Indeed, there is startling archetypal truth to these sons of Apollo being imposing, and, like Apollo, taking on what were previously female attributes under girly goddess rulership. In short, Libra man isn't the butchest dresser on the block. In Wildian manner, he can be flamboyant to a fault, mixing and matching colors or patterns wildly, blending high and low fashion into an exciting melange, clothing becoming a visible means of bucking social conformity. To him, one is whom one imagines oneself to be. Appearing false or phony couldn't be further from his mind. In fact, of all the astrological signs, Libra may have the most difficulty telling even the tiniest fib. When endeavoring to do so, he noticeably cannot make eye contact. But his inherent frankness may be taken as too in-your-face an attitude to quietly tolerate. Our friend Maddie just told us that their partner, who's a Libra sun, their name is Pip. Very interesting. As the zodiac's consummate artiste, Libra is his own greatest living masterpiece. He doesn't so much throw clothes on as he does art direct himself, and indeed his entire life. His hairstyle is often as edgy as his fashion sense. Wedgy mushroom cuts, Prince Valiant bobs, or carefully coiffed rocker shags are some favorite looks. Since his hair is often wavy or curly, he may choose to leave it loose, embracing a hippie chick aesthetic. In fairness to his detractors, there is something, indeed, decidedly foppish about the Libra male. There is simply no avoiding that he has orchestrated his appearance. As that list of famous men of the sign denotes, Libra is a man of his own divining, a walking, talking thought form. His imagination is famously hyperactive, and typically before he can talk, he's already performing the myriad characters brewing in his head. Needless to say, this gives his parents pause. At so young an age, he seems already to be acting, not simply being himself. What his parents don't realize is that these masked characterizations are himself. Remember that "we are" motto? Each and every side of his personality is cataloged into the formation of his singular psyche. Just as Libra is the Renaissance man, dabbling in a multitude of arts and leisure interests, he is within himself a multiple personality. His mind is a corrugated wall of characters from which he pulls his various faces. But what sounds like psychosis is a natural psychological process for the Libra. No one part of him is phony in the least. It's just that artifice, the word stemming from art, is indigenous to the one male born under this inanimate star sign. But is art artifice? Or does it imitate life? Or vice versa? Libra man is a living, breathing exploration of these essential questions. He represents life lived as a sort of performance art, begging the question, can not the same be true for any one of us? Admittedly, organizing and coordinating the chorus of selves that make up his naturally faceted personality does require a great deal of orchestration, in the strictest symphonic sense of the word. It's a very interesting writer of this book. It's interesting when you read about these things, especially because having other planets aspecting the sun, or just other planets in Libra, or aspecting any of the planets in Libra, are going to give them different character. But we're always going to see something along the nature of what we've seen come through. Now, we have been talking about the looks and the mind and philosophy of the Libra character. And we've taken up quite a few pages to do so. Now, the next bit of time is going to be pretty long as well. This is the namesake of this book, ladies and gentlemen. If you're hanging out and you're having fun, we're about to get into the sex and sexuality of Libra Sun male. This is the juicy stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy as we go along and talk about the sexy dimension of Libra Sun as a man. We read, from the time he is a small child, Libra man feels other. His parents, recognizing their son's outsized imagination, personality, and antics, may label the boy special, but more often than not, he is simply considered different or weird. When Libra hits adolescence and sexuality enters the picture, he feels often unable to compete, especially physically, with the muscleheads who are attracting girls' attentions. Having enjoyed lavish female companionship in his youth, he may suddenly find himself downgraded to the position of friend, the friend zone. And if at such a disadvantage, Libra has difficulty scoring recognition as a sexual entity. Fittingly, he may feel himself to be an all too balanced combination of traditionally male and female traits, having to constantly defend himself against the barbs aimed at his seemingly dubious sexuality. Even the straightest Libra on the planet will have this sexuality called into question by the more simple-minded cookie-cutter population of the world. During adolescence, he may even wonder about himself, attributing his feelings of being different to a possible alternative sexual orientation, which, even when Libra is gay, may not be the case. He simply suffers from an ongoing identity crisis, a tendency that unfortunately contributes to making him an obvious target for gay male advances. In his quest for self-realization, many a Libra boy will sexually experiment with other males, often on the instigation of an older boy who senses Libra's innately searching nature. Libra is looking for that elusive love, after all, in one form or another. For some, this is a departure point for committing to a gay lifestyle, while often even the straightest Libra will be a most gay-friendly individual, recognizing what may only be a purely theoretical bisexuality within himself. In fact, Libras of both sexes support the argument that all people are inherently bisexual. I'm kind of in that category too. At the very least, he might be among those fellows who take a good long look at other guys in the locker room, predisposed to being as aesthetically intrigued by a godlike male form as he is by that of a lovely female, all things being balanced and equal. My friend Rabbi is saying that it's possible that all air signs, including Aquarius and Gemini, probably have a bit of this sort of equilateral consciousness of gender as well and sexual orientation, which I think is fair. The air signs have this sort of quality of being able to put themselves into the other person's shoes. We read that straight Libra man is rarely a homophobe. For everyone who says a Libra like Eminem is thus prejudiced, there is someone else who will maintain that such anger is self-directed. In truth, sometimes the character Libra adopts, sometimes the character that Libra adopts is a bad boy persona geared toward completely warding off that sensitive Venusian energy that sends most Libran Linuses lunging for their metaphoric security blankets, if only to turn around and sport it, as that Peanuts character often does, in some dramatic, fashionable flourish. However it manifests, the Libra's so-called artificial costume is in fact wrought from the very fabric of any sense of inferiority he feels, such bells and whistles meant to distract others, and indeed himself, from any real pain he might be feeling beneath his airy artifice. In general, he is far too intellectually enlightened to judge others based on race, creed, color, or sexual orientation. In fact, Libra believes it is his free-thinking mind that offers him the best chance of impressing others, especially the women who appeal to his discriminating taste. Not typically comfortable competing in the more rustic arenas of male prowess, as he takes to the tennis court or ski slope far more readily to the football field or the basketball court, or the baseball diamond is actually what this says. He commits to nurturing his urbane qualities in hopes of scoring points with such ladies who look to swim in so culturally sophisticated a pool. Easier said than done. Sadly, Libra is often rather unlucky in love. One so witty and charming surely makes an entertaining date. But the Libran bon vivant is not readily considered marriage material. He is poised, polished, princely even, as if fresh from some finishing school of his own imagining. But why, women may wonder, does he make such a fuss about himself? The simple answer is because he can, but rather because he often must, as such behavior is a byproduct of the means for emotional survival he employed as a child. Betterment thus becomes the most striking through line in any Libra man's life. He teaches us, by example, that we needn't necessarily accept the station into which we're born, that we may draft our own design for living, one that suits the person we see ourselves to be in our greatest expectations. The flip side, however, is that Libra is hard-pressed ever to feel satisfied with himself or with his own accomplishments. It is his particular challenge to learn to appreciate his current status at any given time if he wishes to see the value of his life continue to, well, appreciate. Libra is living proof of the old adage that you must love what you have in order to get what you want. This is the precise karmic paradox upon which the Libran condition is predicated. Unfortunately, Libra's notoriously freelance, artsy approach to life doesn't much impress the legions of women looking for security in a mate. One more strike against Libra in his search for lasting love. He'll always have girlfriends, but when it comes to marriage or any permanent form of a relationship, he finds that women have a hard time committing. He's at once too much ideas, a hot air sort of thing, and also not enough, meaning, substance and, money on the table is kind of what's being conveyed here. It will require a woman with some foresight and a boatload of confidence to join with the Libra dandy. The faith such a steady mate might invest in him, something he's unaccustomed to. His own parents having pooh-poohed his loftier ambitions, attempting to steer him toward more bankable pursuits. This would work ironically, like a charm, in helping Libra to profit from one of his many creative concepts, if he had listened to his parents, who were trying to make his lofty ideals into something materially profitable and manageable and bankable, which would win him more capacity to connect in an 8th house way with women. He has this preoccupation with that 7th house or 7th sign dimension of consciousness. It's also worth noting that the sun, again, is a separating planet, and the sun often requires a certain sacrifice regarding whatever house and sign that it's in. By being in the sign of Libra, it burns the marriage sign in the person's chart. And this gives him this experience of women not being quite so easy to commit. I should, at this point, mention, of course, that if there's a Jupiter in the 7th house from the rising sign, or if there's Venus in the 7th house from the rising sign, if there's positive aspects to it, and as a Vedic person, I'd say, if the ruler of the 7th house cusp is well placed or exalted or also has benefic influence, it's easy for these Libra men at this point to gain people in their lives, to have the luck of anybody else. It's just at this point that the Libra sun man will feel internally like, I'm not good enough for these women that I have the luck of obtaining, right? We got to consider the whole spider web of the chart. So Libra man returns the favor. For better or worse, Libra sees those he loves in their best possible light. An idealized perception that others feel hard-pressed to live up to. The Libra man has the same lofty hopes for others as he has for himself, often making loved ones feel less when they invariably fall short. As while being seen through the rosy Libran lens may be inspiring, it can also be a window into one's deficiencies, which is something that you will have to be married to in order to be with this person. In a sense, Libra picks up being Pygmalion, where his predecessor Virgo left off. Virgo, wanting to make a woman into his ideal, chips away, sculpting her in Svengali fashion, while Libra beholds a woman as the finished artistic product, like Galatea on her pedestal, admiring her until his loaded appreciation causes her to come to life and return his feelings. Such is the power of love, according to Libra. And in keeping with this Galatean analogy, Libra is drawn to statuesque, if not monumental women of classical beauty. Those who are, in his estimation, perfect works of art. This poses yet another stumbling block to his securing a love connection, as the zodiac's Pip can't always easily win the affections of the world's aloof stellas, meaning a stella meaning star-like. The Pip of Libra can't always go for the idealized perfect woman, the stars of society for whatever reason. Of course, it's merely a matter of perception. Recognizing only the good, if not the perfect, Libra will plop the women he fancies onto that pedestal, regardless of whether it's universally agreed that Gwyneth Paltrow could play her in the movie version of his life, or even if she's wont to perch there in the first place. Even Dickens's story of the questionably beloved Pip is a remodeling of many an Apollonian romance myth, the most famous of which is the god's pursuit of the nymph Daphne, meaning honor, who would sooner see herself turned into a tree than to have to hook up with a veritable god who, by all accounts, should be something of a heartthrob. But even Daphne turning into that laurel tree, we see the particular power of Apollo's love. It is ennobling, an expression of his attraction to high ideals, as personified by a certain brand of female, one synonymous with honor. Likewise, Libra's love and appreciation are capable of having a profound transformative effect on a would-be partner. Looking into his admiring gaze, a woman will see herself as a simulacrum of the superior expectations he heaps on her, thus inspired to systematically begin seeing herself in the same light. The love of a Libra is indeed empowering. He doesn't seek to foster dependency. On the contrary, he wants those he loves to feel free and accomplished, such that they may need no more from him or anybody else than reciprocated, requited love. Now, I'm just going to quickly close my window because it's freezing in here. Canada, y'all. Of course, the glut of goodness and light with which Libra barricades himself only casts a more ominous shadow in his life and in his psyche. Libra man takes everything in, rationalizes it, then compensates for any disadvantage with an often outsized optimism, if not extreme glee. But this is Pagliacci, folks, the zodiac's little drama department. Libra man is both the theatrical muses' masks together, tragedy and comedy. Indeed, for all the Pollyannaism this guy exudes, Indeed, for all the Pollyannaism this guy exudes, he represses at least that much disappointment. Half empty, half full. Therein lies the Libra quandary. The scales tip back and forth constantly, all day, as any Libran's loved one will tell you. As the cardinal air guy, Libra is mentally active, forever drawing plans and philosophies and inventing scenarios. All Libra men are dramatists. He looks for psychological action along experiential rather than purely physical lines. His character forever in full swing. He is continually out to achieve some objective. This is not the sit quietly by yourself sign. Libra embodies his motto, we are, and a relationship with him can feel like a duet or dance-a-thon that has gone on too long. It's funny. Every conversation is loaded with the Libra man. Every decision must be made by committee, relationships being a democracy à deux. Why does Daphne run from Apollo, after all? Like Libra man, Apollo may simply be too much work. A lot is going on in the mind of this man, and he's beaming with agendas. Added to which, Libra is notoriously anxious and impatient to accomplish. Good intentions, great expectations. Every day he prepares a sweeping fan of activities that he invariably fails to achieve, thwarted by scrupulous self-demand. But for him, disappointment is de rigueur. It is his state of mind roughly half the time. As friends and foes of the Libra know, this guy goes to extremes, exerting talent and torment in equal measure. Life with Libra has its tensions, but remember, he seems to thrive on it. As the scales, life is a teeter-totter, or rather a tightrope. Propelling himself through the world in pursuit of his increasingly lofty aspirations, Libra slowly acquires finesse. With Apollonian grace and serenity, the Libra man eventually gets into a groove. Meanwhile, he may struggle with his idealism in a relationship, such that his partner might easily tumble from the pedestal on which he has placed her. Okay. Hey, everybody. It looks like we got disconnected again. I've got to figure out exactly what that's about. I think it's an internet issue, but it looks like we're still here. We're still alive. We still have some viewers. And I'll thank you all again for hanging out with me and being a part of this live stream. So we're pretty far into our session so far. We're pretty much about 2 hours in from the beginning. We are just getting into, really we were supposed to start the Libra sex part, and we've been going through it. Now we are just coming into an explanation for the psyche of the Libra man when it comes to sex. And we've taken a long time talking about this psyche because the mind is a big part of Libra man's performance in bed. We are still on the straight Libra man, and really everything that we're going through here, I should say, is also relates to the homosexual and bisexual Libra man as well. Now we're continuing on. The Libra man may struggle with his idealism in a relationship, such that his partner might easily tumble from the pedestal on which he has placed her. As hard as he is on himself, he needn't be more than a fraction as tough on his mate to cause some major emotional damage. As appreciative and indeed flattering as he might be, he can be at least that cruel and cutting. Apollo's arrows delivered the most painful wounds imaginable. What Libra wrestles with most in life are his conflicting needs for freedom and commitment. Marriage and divorce are both 7th house attributes. And the Libra man often projects blame for his quandary onto a loved one when he's feeling stifled by too close for comfort circumstance. He wants his cake and he wants to eat it too, seeking stability and serendipity in equal measures. Neither does Libra check his idealism at the bedroom door. Sex for Libra must be, in a word, beautiful. The mood, indeed the lighting, must be just so, preferring a cool blue haze akin to his sign-ruled twilight, as his vision of lovemaking is rather lyrical. No fumbling or false starts, but rather a slow, erotic journey with lots of crescendo and a sweeping, successful finish that should never leave him or his partner wanting. It should always be perfectly dramatized. Placing such a tall order on himself in the sack, Libra may be too in his head about his performances. As a result, he indulges in lavish foreplay, determined to gratify a woman early on, if only as a preventative measure, daunted by the prospect of not delivering a big bang during intercourse. In contrast to his opposite sign of Aries, aptly named the Ram, Libra uses his brain over whatever brawn he might possess. This boy Venus is far more erotic than he is explicitly carnal, his bedroom operations being tastefully artistic as opposed to blatantly pornographic. Fittingly, he is a light, surfacey lover, orderly yet improvisational. Kissing a woman's mouth, neck, ears, wherever, Libra expertly employs breath, sharp inhalations or hot blows to awaken hidden erogenous zones. Libra is a master of the soft touch, barely tracing his fingers over a woman's body, allowing her anticipation to play a part in arousal. He is the most sexually intuitive of men, seeking to function on the astral plane, moving his hands over a woman as if casting a psychic spell of excitement, seeking to stimulate her aura as much as her actual body parts. He wants a lover to writhe in great expectation before he so much as licks a nipple. It never takes long for the Libra to bring his lover, thus warmed up, to orgasm. A particular specialty of this cunning linguist is the art of the oral. His style is slow and steady, deep stimulation mixed with unexpectedly quick and breezy touches, leaving plenty of space between applications of his creative tongue lashings. Still, despite what may seem like a brilliantly manufactured form of lovemaking, sex with Libra doesn't preclude pure passion. The orderly manner in which he expresses himself sexually stems from a place of true feeling and inspiration. As in any successful artistic performance, Libra is blessed with the ability to channel his ardor into a skillfully honed technique. If a woman is looking for a real good rogering, however, Libra is typically not the man for the job. Even when generously endowed, visions of Tommy Lee come to mind. He's bound to equally share in the experience of lovemaking rather than taking the lead and giving a woman the proverbial lay of her life. Like his closest astrological neighbor, the Virgo woman, Libra is engineered for a tantric style of lovemaking, like Sting. He actually mentions it. Committing to the Libra's slow, if we build it, you will come modus, Libra and his partner may attain ecstatic levels of pleasure. By taking a more yogic approach to sex, visions of Sting leap to mind. The erotic act with Libra can indeed be a transcendent experience. The scales guy is typically wise to strike sexual goal-orientedness from his thinking. For if the Libra is going to suffer from any snafus in the bedroom, premature ejaculation might top the list. Luckily, what the zodiac's perfectionist may lack in staying power, he makes up for in prevention, if not repeat, sexual performances. Again, there's so much to consider here. Really, even considering where the Mars is going to really play a part in anybody's capacity to stay the line. These are all, the whole chart's got to be considered when it comes to stuff like this. As one might expect from a man born under the antiseptic Apollonian principle, Libra cannot abide much of a mess in the boudoir. He can barely tolerate rolling into a wet spot on the sheets, not wanting such a vivid reminder of what most other signs might simply consider evidence of a rousing good time. There are distinct advantages to the Libra's being in his head in bed. His mind surfaces as more of a sexual organ than any other he possesses. Our little god of prophecy seems to nearly divine desire in a woman, touching her as he would a painter, knowing where to next stroke, playing a woman improvisationally like a piano. Artful and attentive, the Libra, unlike many men, considers the pleasure of his partner in tandem with his own, and is actually so sympathetic to her or him that he makes sure they climax first or solely. It's the same in all aspects of his life. If he shares a sandwich, he's sure to offer up the larger half, simply because it would displease him so much to be the cause of any one-sidedness. Eye balance typically entails taking the short end of the stick, with the brain being by far the scales' most powerful tool, sexually or otherwise. The Libra may, in extreme cases, become so immersed in the erotic that it replaces any real physical contact, intrigued as he is by no fuss, no muss, hands-off experiences. Classy strippers, phone sex, autoeroticism, as well as elaborate mind games of domination and submission and voyeuristic fantasies are all very much Libra domain. Projecting his erotic expectations into the atmosphere, he may imagine sexual tension where it doesn't exist. Even his platonic relationships can be charged and ambiguous. A big what if often hangs in the air. Group sex, too, befits his we attitude. Still, if ever involved in such a scenario, Libra might typically take the role of fly on the wall. He's a sexual dabbler who believes that one should try everything at least twice. He rarely becomes psychologically or emotionally invested and is uncommonly able to exit most sexual scenarios unscathed. Even in his intimate one-on-one lovemaking, Libra adopts an impersonal perspective. He's particularly aroused by being used as an inanimate object, a sexual tool for a woman's pleasure. Indeed, nothing gives Libra a larger hard-on than a woman who can't get enough of him, hungrily using his phallus every which way for her own masturbatory pleasure. In his blasé, cool blue vision of erotic activity, Libra doesn't believe in making a big deal out of sex. He has an aversion to rules, and he scoffs at sexual labels. As one of the truly naturally bisexual signs of the zodiac, the Libra man is especially paradoxical in his sexual attractions. In reflection of his placement on the astrological wheel, Libra feels very much in the middle. Placed in the role of mediator between his parents at such an early age, he learns to see both sides of the argument in the ongoing battle between the sexes. And, more often than not, it's in the middle that he would like to stay. In brass tacks, Libra is prone to liking threesomes of either the female, male, female variety or the male, female, male variety. Having a bisexual female partner is an especially thrilling possibility to the Libra, as the possibilities seem endless. With two women, he may prefer to be all but ignored, left to kick back and observe the action, unless, of course, he's being used as that dildo. He also enjoys being in bed with a straight couple, though typically under the guise of sharing with a buddy. Any same-sex contact seeming accidental. Whoops. As if Libra's paradoxical nature wasn't confusing enough, he's at once attracted to the straightest of men and the most ambiguous of women. But Libra's free love attitude doesn't prevent him from having those loving, lifelong bonds attributed to his 7th house of astrology. Sex, it seems, is often beside the point. As liberated and sexually ambidextrous as Libra might be, his primary goal will always be unity with one individual. He's far more interested in sharing a committed emotional life with a partner in the light of day than he is with what actually happens in bed in the dark of night. For all his self-objectifying, what he truly longs for is love. Even when sexually ambidextrous, Libra must bond with one person monogamously, at least in theory, and typically with a woman. Whereas the scales guy is more likely than most to experience a homosexual encounter, he is one, ironically, of the least likely to self-identify as gay. In a nod to his 7th house of opposites, Libra finds it difficult to merge emotionally with someone of the same sex. And this is when, for everybody watching, this is when we get into the idea of the homosexual or get bi Libra man, as we've just kind of dipped into it now. Libra finds it difficult to merge emotionally with someone of the same sex. He worships male beauty, so physical attractions to men do come easily. But at the end of the day, two males in one household, not to mention two stiff piggies wrapped in one blanket, tends to strike Libra as redundant, tipping the scales' precarious sensibilities too far in one direction. Just when life with straight Libra seemed liberal enough, the gay man of the sign takes his open sexual policy in relationships that much further. Of all gay men, Libra is perhaps the least naturally inclined towards steady relationships. His attraction to straight acting, straight appearing, and indeed straight identified men finds him hooking up with the most barely bisexual characters, closet cases, with whom he shares a homoerotic rather than strictly homosexual approach to same-sex contact. Fittingly, so many Libras' first gay experiences are with older, supposedly straight, and invariably married men. With his pretty boy looks and AC/DC demeanor, Libra has a way of making almost any guy consider a walk on the wild side. Perhaps it is his light attitude towards homosexual contact that makes sex feel like no bigger a deal than a handshake, or, more accurately, a wrestling match. Libra can be quite the little male Lolita, precociously provoking whatever submerged gay fantasy another man might possess. Since the scales himself isn't looking to be somebody's house husband. The no-string-attached sexual agenda he projects suits those bi-curious males just fine, ensuring a discreet atmosphere in which to explore cached desires. Libra's soft, childlike looks, something he tends to retain well into middle age, tend to attract a more dominantly inclined man. And though Libra is always open to exploring his receptive side, he will, as the zodiac's compensator, eventually seek balance by taking an aggressive position in bed. Still, Libra likes his men to be men, so he usually learns to accept a sex life spent on the bottom. Not to say he'll ever just lie there. A need for order and control prohibits Libra from ever being the consummate submissive. Instead, he might be described as an aggressive or power bottom. Like his straight counterpart, gay Libra likes to keep sex light and lively. So, some of the manly tops he attracts push his envelope a little further than he typically likes. He is orally adept, though perhaps not especially talented in the deep-throating department. 69 is standard sexual fare for the scales guy, again, all things being equal. Particularly drawn to suit and tie conservatives, Libra plays his freelance virtuoso act to the hilt in same-sex relationships, deriving pleasure from being wilder, if not crazier, than his lover's usual circle of friends. In cases where he has dragged his partner out of the closet, Libra thrills in shaking up the stodgier dinner parties and business gatherings to which his mate might invite him, gauging other people's reactions to his infamously candid comments and liberal political views. Artists, he believes, were put on the earth to provoke, and Libra feels duty-bound to capsize conformist codes of behavior. Cool. Never off-color, however, he typically ends up as the life of the party, and his attendance only augments his lover's popularity. Indeed, gay Libra is a beautiful reflection on his partner, a power that he and his mate might use to other advantages as well. Forever on the lookout for new and exciting experiences, Libra may, from time to time, hope to lure a third party into the bedroom, willing to give his lover an eyeful of his interaction with such a lucky stranger. It's a scenario his partner would be wise to welcome, as, with or without him, Libra will always look to spice up his sex life with an occasional infusion of variety. That was it, folks. Very interesting character, the Libra man, both straight as well as gay. It's always interesting to see how the consciousness plays out in these books. I love the way these books paint the character. And I've known so many Libras in my life. I've been with Libra. I've been with a Libra man or two in my life. And even just as best friends. The Scorpio in me loves the Libra man character. I've got a Libra in my band. And he always has such an awesome way of being, how shall I describe? You know, the Libra man is very sharp, very witty, always has that aristocratic sort of like consciousness. And they'll go places mentally that are just the most like deadly, cynical, critical places that I've ever seen anybody go. My drummer in particular has Leo moon, and he can be so funny with just being willing to just talk about things in a fearless sort of way. But ultimately, they always come off as this sort of almost humanitarian and Aquarian sense. But how I read it as like a social commentator on what everybody should be. It's like there's like a mass collective consciousness that comes through their individuality. They're tuned to what the masses typically think about trends and social issues. And I love the character. So I hope everybody enjoyed this. This is a lot of fun. And you guys are going to be seeing me doing more sextrology stuff as time goes on. The astrology of sex and the sexes. My plan is that now that we've gone through the sexual psyche of Libra man, we are in our next series going to be talking about, I don't know, it's in here somewhere. Stay tuned, because eventually we're going to be looking at cosmic coupling, which is where we are going to be reading about the character of Libra man going out with the different signs of the zodiac. For example, this is Libra man with Sagittarius woman, and of course there is also a page on Libra man with Sagittarius man as well. So we're going to be going through that in one of the episodes coming in the near future. Probably the next live episode that I do, but possibly not. In this live stream series, I intend to not just do sextrology. You guys are gonna, if you pay attention and watch what's happening on my channel, I'm gonna go through I'm gonna go through Jupiter in the signs, and I'm going to go through the rising signs, which I have high hopes for. And as well, I am going to also go through a series talking about the 4th house and the 10th house cusp in the signs. For example, I have my 4th house cusp in Libra, and that's probably what I'm going to start with. We'll talk about, one episode will be Libra having the 4th house cusp in it, and it's going to talk about what is a Gemini like with the 4th house cusp in Libra, the 5th sign from Gemini. What's Cancer like with the 4th cusp in Libra, and what is Leo like with the 4th cusp in Libra? Because of course we know that the 10th and 4th axis can sway according to wherever the house cusp is. It's the relationship of the North Pole of the planet to the sun at the time that somebody's born. For example, I'm a Leo rising. My 4th house cusp falls in Libra, which is the 3rd sign from Leo. So it has a sort of 3rd house communication and searching aspect to it. Not the best place, but it's good for my 10th house cusp, which is in Aries, the 9th house, which is better for Leo. I'm going to be talking about that kind of consciousness as we come along to that series of episodes. My friend Susie Underwood is just noting that Aleister Crowley is really the penultimate Libra man, and you're so right. I know exactly what you're saying there, Susie. I love Aleister Crowley. I'm definitely very intrigued by him, and I love his writings as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Without further ado, I'm Dustin Cormier, and this has been an episode of How to Rock Astrology. Thanks for watching. Keep your eyes peeled, because I'm going to try to keep this going up every Sunday if I can help it. I really appreciate everybody hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys again soon. For my friend Maddie, who's asking to put a link to the book, yes, I will, because it's a great book, and I think everybody interested in astrology should check it out. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll talk to you on the flip side.